What's the dumbest rule your school ever enforced? Not being allowed to wear hoodies, jackets or sweaters that lack the official school logo. I was a high school teacher for several years. Both buildings I worked in were freezing. And having admin pull students out of my classroom during a 50-minute period and giving them detention instead of letting them learn is cruel and completely unnecessary, in my opinion. My school had 3 staircases along a very long corridor. We were banned from using the middle staircase because it got overcrowded. You can only use 3 squares of TP. If you throw snowballs, you get a 1-day suspension. The first long weekend after a snowfall, everyone would throw snowballs to get an additional day added to the long weekend. You had to wear your ID around your neck on a rope thing. Then the choking started. Candy canes were outlawed because you could sharpen them to a point and use them as a shiv. I went to school in rural Washington. Elementary school principal banned talking at lunch. If you were caught talking or even signing to someone, you had to go sit by yourself on a folding chair with no table. There was once my mom came to eat lunch with my older sister and I. The principal was like, "Oh, you should go eat out in the hallway with your daughters," and she was like, "Nah. I'm gonna sit here with my daughter and her friends and talk to them and enjoy their presence." Usually if a parent came for lunch, the student could invite one friend to join. Unless you had siblings. Then it was too many people, so you couldn't invite a friend. Anyway, one of my older sister's friends whispered to my mom that she was going to move so she wouldn't get in trouble for talking. This was a 9-year-old. I got Saturday school for missing a day of classes when I was 16. Seems reasonable. Except I missed to go complete my US citizenship and officially become a citizen alongside my mom. It took us 12 years to go through the legal process. BTW. Whole other issue. I had a note from my mother as well as a signed official federal form they give you to explain to school employers why you were absent. Apparently the only acceptable absence excuse was illness. That if you say do anything back to your bully, it becomes a mutual conflict and isn't bullying. So if they start calling you slurs and making you feel bad every day and you call them stupid once or twice, the school probably won't help. Also, dress code required school branded hoodies. They were $50. At my kids' elementary school, students had to smile while walking in the hall. After 9/11, my school instituted a zero tolerance policy on bullying and violence. What 9/11 had to do with bullying? I don't know. Anyways, Halloween 2001. I dress up as the guy from Clockwork Orange. He carries a cane around. The principal pulled me aside. Told me walking around with a cane could be a weapon. Therefore just walking with it is an act of violence. And suspended me for a couple of days. Telling me that after 9/11, we don't mess around with that kind of stuff. Semicolon. Edit. This happened in Quebec. In a small town. The new principal made a morning roundup rule where anyone arriving to class after the last bell had to go to the cafeteria and listen to a lecture about not being late for class. This took about an extra 15 minutes. Making the students even more late to class than they would have otherwise been. Needless to say, everyone hated it. Even the teachers. That principal didn't last long. If we didn't see it happen, it didn't happen. All it did was train bullies to be really good at keeping their voices down and being aware of their surroundings so they could avoid doing shitty within a teacher's line of sight. It meant if you were ever outside of a teacher's vision range, you were still fair game for heaps of abuse. And if you tried to report things that teachers didn't see, then the teachers treated you like you were making up bullshit. It also didn't stop teachers from enforcing double standards. Like believing reports from their personal favorites even when they didn't see it happen. Since they could just claim they saw it happen if it was contested. That school was basically a training facility to turn bullies into stealth experts. I was sent to the principal in elementary school for getting a drink of water out of line, as in we walked down the hall in a formation and we had designated water drinking stops. To this day I still remember the principal asking angrily, "Well, what if everyone started getting water without permission?" And I still don't have an answer. Will all. Full stop. Full stop. Be hydrated? No beads. Apparently they thought beaded jewelry was gang related. Nothing says hardened criminal like matching bead bracelets that say BFFs. 3. It wasn't really the rule that was dumb but the reason for it. In my last year of high school, the school issued a rule that all students had to wear student IDs. If you didn't, you had to immediately go and pay for another ID. While you can see how many students may have saw this a way to skip class, the reason for this was the school shootings that happened the previous year. The reasoning was that it would be easier to spot who is a student and who is not a student to then see who has malicious intent. Except that most shooters were students. So, we were not allowed to have facial hair at all. Like to the point where the principal would walk around during lunch with razors and shaving cream and do stubble checks. Absolutely ridiculous, and he would send tons of us to the bathrooms to shave during lunch. No matter how small the stubble was. Closing boys' toilets. Because some CNT was stealing toilet paper. When school staff announced this stupid rule, some students actually threatened to sh-tea on the tables then. I got a suspension for holding a stick. The phone call with my mom went something like this, only slightly dramatized. School. MRS. The quack. Your son has been suspended. Mom. Oh my goodness. What did he do? S. He was holding a stick. M. Did he hit someone with it? S. No. He was just holding it. M. Did he threaten to hit someone with it? S. No. Just held it. M. Did he refuse to put it down when you asked? S. No. No. He was very cooperative. M. So, what did he do wrong? S. He held a stick. M. And I should be upset about that? S. Absolutely. You know we have a zero tolerance policy. M. Right. Well, I'll talk with him. As you might guess, I did not get in trouble at home. Went to school during the time where health and safety suddenly started going crazy. They introduced a no contact under any circumstances rule, i.e. no touching another person. We were like 6 or 7 years old. Suddenly one day not only is tag suddenly illegal, but they actually enforced it. I remember one day like 70% of the school's population was pulled off of the playground and made to sit on the floor in the hall. For the crime of just playing the games that children play. Playing cards at lunch was prohibited because it promoted gambling. In grade school, we weren't allowed to play on the playground equipment when it snowed. Eventually, we weren't allowed to play with snow or even go near it. I got in trouble for sitting in snow. This was in Minnesota where it snows half the year. Recess basically consisted of milling around the blacktop for 30 minutes. We once had a rule that we could only go to the bathroom during class. Not in the breaks. Only during class. Can't be standing around in groups more than 4. Gang mentality. My gang of 4 found that policy very convenient. We had to sign a waiver before prom stating we wouldn't dance dirty. No one went to prom. Banned all backpacks bags on campus. Students were expected to somehow carry everything they needed in hand. This was especially challenging if you had a non-ideal locker placement. I got in trouble for humming to myself in the bathroom and told I was disturbing another class. What was the entire class outside the door listening to you? So many. You weren't allowed to wear a coat or a backpack, always freezing with tons of books. No card games at all. You have to wear your tie all the way home. Why even do this? Locked the only boys' bathroom because someone wrote on the wall in Sharpie. It wasn't even anything rude or inappropriate either. It was just the word hi or something like that. Didn't unlock the door until one boy wet himself and parents threatened to sue. That kid really sacrificed himself for everyone else. They outlawed bracelets because there was an article in a magazine somewhere saying they advertised what sexual acts you were open for based on their color. Then someone tried to outlaw wristwatches for the same reason. We weren't allowed to wear thongs. For a while it was a fad to leave them purposefully visible under low-rise jeans. My friend is an administrator at a private school in NJ and the faculty has to sign in and out of the bathroom using Google Sheets. 9 AM. 10 minutes. Google Sheets. Girls weren't allowed to show their ankles. The dean had a pack of socks in her office she would give the students and make them wear. Only girls though. This was the 2000s. Someone stop those animals. They're showing their ankle. Sir. Many years ago when The Simpsons first came out, my school banned Bart Simpson t-shirts that said underachiever. It just sent the wrong message to students. So I wore my I'm Bart Simpson. Who the hell are you t-shirt instead. Until they banned that one too. Not really a rule. But the toilet paper holders are outside of the stalls on a wall. Zero tolerance. Just means that if someone starts a fight with you, you fight back as hard as you can. You're going to get suspended for defending yourself anyway. Might as well make it worthwhile. No slow dances at the prom. Took all the doors off the men's room bathroom stalls because of vandalism for 2 months. Because some kids were vandalizing the school. Everyone has to tea with no privacy. No unnatural hair colors. Except for Lily. Who dyed her hair the school color, maroon. It was dark enough to argue it was a weird red-brown. After 9/11 they made us wear school IDs on our shirt or hanging from a lanyard around the neck. For some reason they decided it would be smart to also put each student's medical history on the back. When I was in junior school, UK boarding school in the 80s, we were not allowed to say okay as it was considered slang and not befitting the young ladies and gentlemen that we should aspire to be. For context, junior school covered ages 5-13. We also had to have a comb and a hanky on us at all times. On top of that, we weren't allowed to have our hands in our pockets because a side looks slovenly. What Victorian boarding school did you go to? If you were caught on your phone they'd take it until the end of the week. You'll get it back at 3:30 on Friday. Parents went mental and a few even came together and sent bills through for part of the phone bills. They ditched that rule after 2 weeks. Edit. Phones were kept overnight in the school and the office until that Friday if they were confiscated. No safe or anything. Just in a plastic box. No getting it back at the end of the day. You just had to go for days without a phone. Even at home. We were not allowed to put our coats on until we were outside. During winter when we would have a storm. I was wearing a regulation uniform jacket in a classroom during winter that had no heating. The teacher demanded I remove my jacket and I refused because I was cold. She sent me to the headmistress. A kid went to the hospital after falling from a wall. Then the school painted yellow lines around the school as a border which the kids weren't allowed to cross. So the teachers had to stand guard and make sure no one crossed it. In high school. Hair length on men and stubble. Look. A bunch of 15-16-year-old guys are going to have a bit of stubble no matter how thoroughly we shave. Forcing us to go to the principal's office to dry shave nearly daily is ducking absurd. Girls must have a male escort them to prom as their date. If your date bails, you can't enter. We were an all-girls school. Many of us had 0 guy friends. Finding dates was hard. I remember one year a girl's boyfriend dumped her when everyone was starting to show up for photos. She showed up at the venue. Mascara running. Begging the principal to let her go in. Principal wouldn't let her. One of the senior homeroom teachers ended up calling her nephew and said, "I need you to put on your suit and get here ASAP." He showed up with flowers and everything. So like, it was salvageable but totally avoidable. The worst part? It wasn't always a rule until one year a group of girls went as friends and kept stealing other people's dates. Way to punish everyone forever because of one group of bitches. Yes. Somehow it became a thing in high school and, well, eventually they got banned. Dildos were banned. The school never thought they would have to print those words. You would think it was a given. You weren't allowed things like chocolate bars or basically any unhealthy snack in your lunchbox. But they then sold double chocolate chip cookies and ice buns in the canteen. Clear liquids only. Some kid brought in Gatorade mixed with alcohol of some sort, so in effort to combat it afterwards they wanted us to only drink clear liquids out of clear containers. My friend nearly got suspended for wearing a trench coat. It was the late 90s. Probably didn't help that he had long hair. Was shy. Dumbest rule. Zero tolerance for fighting. This meant both the kid who started the fight and the kid who got beat on were both suspended. If the kid who got beat on just took it, he was just sent home for the rest of the day. If he dared to fight back, he was suspended for a week, just like the kid who started the fight. Here's the truly stupid part. The school administrators couldn't explain how this led to more brutal fights. My primary school had this weird obsession with safety. When we played dodgeball, the boys had to throw with their non-dominant hand while the girls got to throw full force. And we could get detention for going where the teachers couldn't see us. But the worst rule by far was that we weren't allowed to run on the playground. I'll never forget the time my teacher literally said, "The playground is no place to run." In high school, the supervisor told the prefects and head girls to break up girls hugging in the hallways. I went to an only girls school and teachers discouraged girls from hugging each other. Apparently they thought that it encouraged lesbianism. SMH. Girls were not allowed to wear cycling shorts under their pay skirts. They wanted us to wear these dark green pay pants. Basically just underwear, and it was gross. My year protested. We said shorts or nothing and they backed off. This was 20 plus years ago and it's totally different now. Girls wear what they want for pay. No fighting. Enforced by punishing the kids who were getting hit. They banned plain red and plain blue shirts. No hot drinks. My high school decided to ban women's athletic shorts one day, which was ridiculous for many reasons. Students must keep their hair short. My high school had that rule. One of my friends refused to cut his hair and got sent to the principal because his hair was over his ears. Came back the next day shaved like a skinhead. He said she threatened to have Father Jim cut my hair if I don't get it cut. No ducking way am I getting touched by a priest. You could only go to the bathroom twice a day. Once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Mind you, this is from 8-3 and you had to get a new pass every week and keep it the whole time or you couldn't use the bathroom. Edit. This was prec 8th grade. We actually had a dealer who would make fake passes, so they had to start color coding them. They got rid of this rule a month before I graduated. Edit 2. My new high school has a just go policy and they have no issues. I'm loving it lol. Edit 3 lol. They actually encourage drinking water, at least half your body weight crap, and would have times to drink water from the many water fountains. The hypocrisy. One particular professor at my university would lock the door a minute after class began. If you had to leave to go to the bathroom, you couldn't get back in. Somehow this ancient fossil is still teaching and pulling similar shit. We weren't allowed to have personal drinks in classroom unless we had doctor's note. It was a year-long battle. It showed that the administration wasn't all that smart in wording rules. First was no gang clothing. Not one person admitted it was for a gang. People just happened to like a certain team. Second was no hats. Unless religious. You would have never guessed that so many became religious overnight. Finally, no head coverings. That one finally stuck. But it wasn't without issue. Try telling the valedictorian that a head covering wasn't allowed. P.S. Everyone liked her. And we all had her back when it came time. No farting in class. No long hair for boys. No black and red type clothing. Example. Red undershirt, black overshirt. Black pants, red shirt. No heavy metal band t-shirts or tapes. The school made us sign contracts with real punishments if we didn't follow the specified rules for dances. They prohibited the usual stuff you would expect a school would do in this scenario. Where it got funny was how they defined dances that weren't allowed. Among all the strange descriptors they invented to describe band dance moves, S-Zul squatting was the one that earned the most criticism. No leaving the dorm unless it's for a fire alarm. I went to boarding school from the age of 7. That rule meant we couldn't get out of our dormitory to have a wee in the night. We had a plastic tub one of the girls brought in and went in that. Then we had to smuggle the tub to the bathroom in the morning without matron seeing. Stupid bloody rule. It. Everyone is saying pee out the door or pee on the floor. Just imagine the punishments we got for misbehaving. Doing anything against matron would have never crossed our minds. Also, this was 80s. Early 90s. Southern England. Our punishments were pretty awful, but I survived. We all did. I'm still in touch with some of the girls I boarded with back then. We have our scars, but we're a tough lot. Second edit. Dad was in the army and they moved around a lot. So being sent away was for stability and consistency. You had to have black shoelaces. No dark blue. No white. No grey. Only black. There was also the rule your tie had to be a minimum length. So sometimes one of the assistant head teachers would come in and measure the length of your tie with a ruler. At my high school, girls could not wear sandals or shoes that showed toes because toes make boys think of babies. And babies made boys think of sex. And naturally sex is the devil. I got detention for pooping more than 10 minutes, but I have severe stomach cramps and I asked why and they had no answer. Got chastised once by a female teacher in front of the entire classroom because I was late to return to class. She accused me of visiting other classrooms, talking to my friends. Said she was going to ask every other teacher in the school where I had been and who had seen me. I kept telling her over and over that no, I was just in the bathroom. She didn't believe me. I very loudly explained the truth where pretty much everyone could hear, since everyone already heard her accusing me that I was on my period and shoved TP up my hatchet wound because I didn't have a tampon. But if she likes, I can pull it out to prove it. Shut her up, pretty ducking fast. We weren't allowed to share cough drops. And you had to have a no to have them at all. This was apparently because they were considered medication.